Baby found a pregnant German shepherd, half buried in mud. What Baby did. Next, it moved everyone to tears. What happened next will shock you. This incredible story of courage, hope, and an unbreakable bond will leave you in tears. If this touches your heart, make sure to like, share, and let us know where you're listening from in the comments below. The small town of Pineville wasn't known for much. Nestled between thick forests and rolling hills, it was the kind of place where everyone knew each other, where doors remained unlocked at night, and where the biggest excitement was usually the annual Harvest Festival. For Hannah Marshall, it was a safe haven, a place to rebuild her life and raise her son away from the chaos of the city. Hannah's days were filled with exhaustion. As a single mother working 2 jobs, she barely had time to breathe. The local diner in the morning, the convenience store in the evening, her hands were always busy, her mind always racing with worries about bills, about tomorrow, about Noah. Noah was 5 years old, with eyes the color of rain-washed stones and a heart bigger than his tiny body could contain. But Noah carried a shadow that followed him everywhere. He didn't speak. Not a word, not a whisper had passed his lips in 8 months. Not since that terrible night when everything changed. The doctors called it selective mutism, triggered by trauma. Hannah simply called it heartbreak. "Noah, sweetie, stay where Mommy can see you," Hannah called out as she hung laundry in their small backyard. Their modest rental house sat at the edge of town, where civilization gave way to wilderness. The forest loomed just beyond their property, dark and mysterious. Noah didn't answer. He never did. But he nodded, his serious little face solemn as he played with a pile of fallen leaves. Hannah watched him with a mixture of love and worry that had become as familiar to her as breathing. He was such a quiet child, even before the accident, always observing, always feeling so deeply. Hannah's neighbor, Mrs. Peterson, a woman with silver hair and kind eyes, often said that Noah had an old soul. "That boy," she would say, shaking her head. "He understands things that even we adults miss, mark my words." And perhaps she was right. Noah seemed to connect with animals in a way that was almost magical. Stray cats followed him home. Birds would land near him without fear. Once, Hannah had found him sitting perfectly still in the yard, a wild rabbit calmly eating clover from his outstretched palm. 10 more minutes, then lunch," Hannah called, pinning the last of the towels to the line. The October air was crisp, carrying the promise of rain. Dark clouds gathered on the horizon, and Hannah frowned. The forecast had mentioned storms, and their roof leaked in 3 places already. When she turned back, Noah was gone. Panic seized her throat. "Noah!" Her voice cracked as she scanned the yard. "Noah!" She dropped the empty laundry basket and ran to the edge of the property, her heart hammering against her ribs. The forest stretched before her, endless and forbidding. She saw it then, a small footprint in the soft earth leading toward the trees, and beside it, another, and another. He had wandered into the forest. Hannah had always warned him never to go into the woods alone. There were too many dangers, steep ravines, the old abandoned quarry filled with water, wild animals. And in her darkest thoughts, things worse than animals, things like the people who had taken everything from her before they'd moved here. "Noah!" she screamed, plunging into the trees without hesitation. Branches clawed at her face, roots threatened to trip her, but Hannah pushed forward, calling her son's name over and over, though she knew he wouldn't answer. The first drops of rain began to fall, cold against her skin. The sky darkened overhead, turning the forest into a labyrinth of shadows. Hannah's lungs burned as she ran, her mind filled with terrible images. Noah fallen into a ravine, Noah lost and alone in the coming storm, Noah hurt and unable to call for help. 10 minutes became 20. The rain fell harder, soaking through her clothes. Hannah's voice grew hoarse from shouting. Tears blurred her vision, mixing with the raindrops on her face. "Please," she whispered, no longer sure if she was praying or just begging the universe. "Please, I can't lose him too." A flash of color caught her eye, a splash of red against the browns and greens of the forest floor. Noah's jacket. Hannah stumbled toward it, nearly falling to her knees in relief when she saw him. But Noah wasn't alone, and he wasn't running or playing. He was kneeling in the mud, his small body bent forward in concentration, his hands covered in dark earth. "Noah, what are you—" The words died in Hannah's throat as she came closer, Her son was digging frantically in the mud. His face was streaked with dirt and tears, his expression twisted with a desperation that Hannah had never seen before. And partially buried in the mud before him was something large, something living. Hannah approached slowly, her mind struggling to make sense of what she was seeing. As she drew closer, the shape became clearer. A dog, a large dog, its fur caked with mud, lying so still that, for a moment, Hannah thought it was dead. But then she saw the shallow rise and fall of its side. It was breathing. Noah's fingers were bleeding from digging, but he didn't stop. He looked up at his mother, his eyes wide and pleading. Though he made no sound, his message was clear. Help me save her. Hannah knelt beside her son, the mud soaking through her jeans. Up close she could see that the dog was a German shepherd, its once beautiful coat now filthy and matted. And there was something else. The dog's belly was swollen and round. "She's pregnant," Hannah whispered, shock giving way to horror. Who would do this? Who would bury a pregnant dog and leave her to die? The dog's eyes fluttered open, warm amber, clouded with pain, but somehow still gentle. She made no move to growl or bite, though she must have been terrified. Instead, she simply watched Noah, as if she understood that this small human was trying to help. "We need to get her out," Hannah said, beginning to dig alongside her son. The rain was coming down harder now, turning the soil to slick mud that slid back into the hole almost as quickly as they could remove it. Hannah's nails broke as she clawed at the earth, but she didn't stop. Lightning flashed overhead, followed by a crack of thunder that made Hannah jump. The storm was getting worse, and they were exposed on this hillside. They needed to work faster. "Just a little more," Hannah encouraged, though she wasn't sure if she was talking to Noah, the dog, or herself. Her fingers brushed against something cold and hard, a metal chain. She dug deeper and found that it was wrapped around the dog's neck, anchoring her to something buried even deeper. "Who did this to you?" Hannah murmured, working to loosen the chain. The dog whimpered softly, the first sound Hannah had heard her make. Noah stroked her head with muddy fingers, his touch impossibly gentle. After what seemed like hours but was probably only minutes, they managed to free the dog's upper body from the mud. But she still couldn't move. Her lower half remained buried. "We need something to dig with," Hannah said, looking around desperately. There was nothing but trees and mud and the relentless rain. "Noah, stay with her. I'm going to look for a branch or something we can use." She stood up, her legs shaking with cold and exertion. But before she could take a step, Noah tugged at her sleeve. He pointed at the dog's belly, his expression urgent. Hannah looked closer and saw what had alarmed her son. The dog's stomach was contracting. "Oh my God," she breathed. "She's going into labor." Panic flooded Hannah's veins. They couldn't deliver puppies here, in the mud and the rain. The mother was too weak, too cold. They needed to get her to help immediately. With renewed determination, Hannah tore off her jacket and began to dig with it, using the fabric to scoop away larger portions of mud. Noah watched, his eyes wide, as his mother worked with a frantic energy. "Just a little more," Hannah said through gritted teeth. "Almost there." Finally, she had cleared enough mud to see what was holding the dog in place. What she saw made bile rise in her throat. The dog's back legs were bound with rusty wire, cutting deep into her flesh. The wire had been deliberately twisted tight, ensuring she couldn't escape, and the chain around her neck was padlocked to a metal stake driven deep into the ground. This wasn't an accident. This was cruelty, calculated and deliberate. "Who would do this?" Hannah whispered, her voice breaking. Noah's shoulders shook with silent sobs as he petted the dog's head, trying to comfort her, even as she lay trapped. Hannah attacked the wire with trembling fingers, trying to loosen it without causing more pain. The sharp edges sliced into her own skin, but she barely noticed. All she could think about was freeing this innocent creature before her puppies came. "I need something to cut this," she muttered, looking around desperately. Then she remembered her keychain had a small multi-tool with wire cutters. She fumbled in her pocket, her fingers numb with cold, and pulled it out. The wire cutters were tiny, meant for electrical work, not for cutting through thick, rusty wire, but it was all they had. Hannah positioned the tool and squeezed with all her strength. The wire bent, but didn't break. "Come on," she hissed, repositioning and trying again. This time, the wire gave slightly. The dog whimpered as the movement sent new pain through her injured legs. "I'm sorry," Hannah whispered, tears streaming down her face. I'm so sorry. Noah watched, his small face a mask of determination and fear. He placed his hands on the dog's side, as if trying to transfer his own warmth and strength to her. The dog's eyes never left his face. Another contraction rippled across the dog's belly. Hannah worked faster, her hands bloody now from the wire and the rough metal of the tool. With a final surge of strength, she cut through the first loop of wire. One down, she panted, moving to the next. The rain had plastered her hair to her face, and she was shivering uncontrollably. But she didn't stop. The second wire was thicker, twisted multiple times around the dog's legs. Hannah's tool slipped in her bloody hands, nearly falling into the mud. Noah caught it before it could drop, his reflexes surprisingly quick. He handed it back to his mother, their eyes meeting in a moment of silent communication. We can do this, Hannah's eyes said. I know, Noah's replied. With renewed focus, Hannah attacked the second wire. It took 3 attempts, but finally it gave way with a snap. The dog's legs were free, though still deeply wounded by the cruel bindings. Now only the chain remained. Hannah examined the padlock, knowing instantly that her tiny tool wouldn't be able to break it. They would have to pull the stake out of the ground. Help me, she said to Noah, positioning herself to pull on the chain. Noah, understanding immediately, moved to stand beside her. Together, they pulled, their feet slipping in the mud, their muscles straining. The stake didn't budge. Hannah could have screamed in frustration. They were so close. The dog was almost free, but without removing that chain, they couldn't move her. Another contraction, stronger this time. The dog let out a low moan of pain. They were running out of time. Noah suddenly released the chain and moved back to the dog's head. He stroked her ears, then looked up at his mother with an expression Hannah couldn't quite read. He pointed at the chain, then at the dog's neck, making a slipping motion with his hands. You think we can slip it over her head? Hannah asked, understanding dawning. It might work. The dog was thin from neglect, and the chain, though tight, might just be loose enough. Carefully, Hannah tried to work the chain up over the dog's head. It caught on her ears, making her whimper. I'm sorry, girl, Hannah murmured. Just a little more. With gentle persistence, she managed to work the chain past the widest part of the dog's skull. One of the German shepherd's ears was bleeding now, where the metal had scraped it, but freedom was just inches away. With a final, careful tug, Hannah lifted the chain clear of the dog's head. They had done it. She was free. But the victory was short-lived. Though no longer chained, the dog still couldn't move. Her legs, too long bound and injured, wouldn't support her weight. And her contractions were coming faster now, her breathing labored and quick. We need to carry her, Hannah said, already trying to figure out how. The dog was large, probably 80 pounds at least, and Hannah wasn't sure she could lift her alone, but they had to try. She removed her flannel shirt, leaving only a thin t-shirt between her skin and the driving rain. Working quickly, she fashioned the shirt into a makeshift sling. This is going to hurt, she warned the dog, though she wasn't sure if the animal could understand. But we're going to get you to safety. With extreme care, Hannah and Noah worked together to slide the sling under the dog's body. The German shepherd whimpered as they moved her, but didn't struggle or try to bite. It was as if she understood that these humans, despite the pain they were causing, were trying to help. Once the sling was in place, Hannah took a deep breath. On 3, she told Noah. 1, 2, 3. Together, they lifted. The dog was even heavier than Hannah had feared, her pregnant belly adding significant weight to her already substantial frame. Hannah's back protested, her arms trembling with the strain. But the look on Noah's face, pure determination despite his small size and the minimal weight he could actually support, gave her strength she didn't know she had. Inch by agonizing inch, they carried the dog through the forest. The rain continued to pour, turning the ground treacherous. Twice Hannah nearly fell, her feet sliding in the mud. But somehow, they kept moving, guided by some instinct that seemed to tell Hannah which way to go, even in the storm's confusion. The dog lay still in their makeshift sling, her eyes half closed with exhaustion. But she was breathing, and that was what mattered. She was alive, and they were going to keep her that way. After what seemed like hours, Hannah spotted a welcome sight through the trees, the back of their house. Somehow, they had circled around and were approaching from a different direction than they had left. Almost there, Hannah gasped, her arms burning with fatigue. Noah's face was pale with strain, but he didn't falter. His small hands gripped the edge of the sling with white-knuckled determination. They staggered across the yard and up onto the back porch. Hannah fumbled with the door, finally managing to kick it open. They carried the dog inside, leaving a trail of mud and water on the floor that Hannah couldn't bring herself to care about. "The bathroom," she panted. "We need to get her clean and warm." They maneuvered through the small house to the bathroom, where they gently lowered the dog into the tub. She lay there, utterly exhausted, her sides heaving with each breath. Now that they were in the light, Hannah could see just how dire her condition was. The German Shepherd's coat, where it wasn't caked with mud, was dull and patchy. Her ribs showed clearly through her skin, and her legs bore deep, infected wounds from the wire. But her eyes, those amber eyes, still held a spark of life, of fight. "You're safe now," Hannah told her, running the water to warm it. "We're going to take care of you." Noah knelt beside the tub, his small hand resting on the dog's head. The German Shepherd's tail thumped weakly against the porcelain, a tiny gesture of trust that brought fresh tears to Hannah's eyes. As Hannah began to gently rinse the mud from the dog's coat, she noticed something glinting beneath the grime on her neck. A tag. She carefully brushed away the mud to reveal a small metal disc attached to a weathered collar. "She belongs to someone," Hannah murmured, turning the tag to read it. But instead of an address or phone number, the tag bore only a single word: Luna. "Luna," Hannah said softly. The dog's ears perked slightly at the sound. "Is that your name, girl?" "Luna?" The dog, Luna, blinked slowly, her tail giving another weak thump. Noah smiled, the first real smile Hannah had seen on his face in months. He pointed to Luna, then to the sky, then made a circular motion with his finger. "The moon," Hannah translated, understanding her son's silent language. "Luna means moon. That's a beautiful name." As they continued to clean her, Luna suddenly stiffened, a low whine escaping her throat. Her belly visibly contracted. "The puppies," Hannah said, panic rising again. "They're coming now." She had helped deliver kittens once, years ago, but never puppies, and certainly never in circumstances like these. "We need a vet." But Pineville was small, with only one veterinary clinic, and it was on the other side of town. With the storm raging outside and Hannah's car low on gas, she wasn't sure they could make it in time. Noah tugged at her sleeve, then pointed to the phone on the wall next to the bathroom door. "You're right," Hannah said. "We'll call for help." She dialed the number for Pineville Veterinary Clinic, praying that someone would still be there despite the late hour and the storm. After 4 rings, a gruff voice answered. "Pineville Vet." "Dr. Martinez?" Hannah said, relief flooding her. "This is Hannah Marshall. I have an emergency. We found a pregnant German Shepherd who was buried in the mud in the forest. She's been hurt, tied up with wire, and she's going into labor right now." There was a pause, then Dr. Martinez's voice came back, sharper now. "How far along is the labor?" "I don't know exactly," Hannah admitted, "but the contractions are coming faster, maybe every few minutes now." "Can you bring her in?" Hannah looked out the window at the driving rain, thought about her nearly empty gas tank, and made a decision. "I don't think so. Not safely, not in this storm." Another pause, then, "Give me your address. I'll come to you." Hannah nearly collapsed with relief as she gave him the information. "Thank you. Thank you so much." "Keep her warm and comfortable," Dr. Martinez instructed. "Don't try to move her more than necessary. I'll be there as soon as I can." Hannah hung up and returned to the bathroom, where Noah was gently stroking Luna's head. The dog's eyes were closed now, her breathing shallow. "Help is coming," Hannah told them both, kneeling beside the tub. "Just hang on a little longer, Luna." They continued to wash the mud from Luna's coat, revealing more of her condition. Besides the wounds on her legs, she had older scars across her back and sides. Whatever life she had led before they found her, it hadn't been kind. Noah worked with intense focus, his small hands careful and gentle as they cleaned around Luna's ears and face. The dog leaned into his touch, as if drawing comfort from this quiet child who had found her in the darkness. Another contraction seized Luna, stronger than the last. She whimpered, her body tensing. Hannah stroked her side, murmuring encouragement. "You're doing great, Luna. Just breathe." The minutes stretched into an hour, Luna's contractions grew more frequent, more intense. Hannah began to worry that Dr. Martinez wouldn't arrive in time. She had only a vague idea of how to help a dog give birth, and Luna was already so weak. A knock at the door startled them both. Noah looked up, his eyes wide. "That must be Dr. Martinez," Hannah said, standing. Her legs were stiff from kneeling so long on the hard bathroom floor. "I'll let him in." She hurried to the front door and opened it to find a man in his 50s with salt and pepper hair and a weathered face, clutching a large medical bag. He was soaked to the skin, his glasses speckled with raindrops. "Thank you for coming," Hannah said, stepping aside to let him in. Dr. Martinez nodded curtly, already moving toward the sound of Luna's whimpers. "How long since you found her?" "About 2 hours," Hannah said, following him to the bathroom. "She was buried in mud, chained to a stake. Someone did this to her deliberately." The vet's face darkened as he entered the bathroom and saw Luna lying in the tub. Noah still knelt beside her, his hand on her head. The boy looked up at Dr. Martinez without fear, his eyes asking the question he couldn't voice. "Can you save her?" Dr. Martinez knelt down, setting his bag on the floor. "Hello there, young man," he said gently. "I see you've been taking good care of this mama dog." Noah nodded solemnly. The vet turned his attention to Luna, his hands moving with practiced efficiency as he examined her. "The wire did a lot of damage," he said grimly. "There's infection setting in, and she's severely malnourished and dehydrated." Hannah's heart sank. "But you can help her, right?" Dr. Martinez didn't answer immediately. He continued his examination, checking Luna's gums, her eyes, her heartbeat. Finally, he looked up at Hannah. "I'll do everything I can, but I need to be honest with you. Her condition is very serious, and the puppies are at risk too." Noah's face crumpled, though he remained silent. His hand tightened slightly on Luna's fur. "She's made it this far," Hannah said, a desperate edge to her voice. "She's a fighter." The vet nodded, already opening his bag. "Then let's give her all the help we can." Dr. Martinez worked quickly, his hands steady and sure, as he prepared a series of injections. "First, we need to get some fluids into her and start antibiotics for the infection," he explained. "Then we'll clean and treat those wounds properly." Hannah watched anxiously as the vet administered the medications one after another. Luna barely reacted to the needles, too exhausted and in too much pain to notice this small additional discomfort. "Is she going to make it?" Hannah asked quietly, not wanting Noah to hear the fear in her voice. Dr. Martinez's expression was grave. "The next few hours will be critical," he said. "She's very weak and birth is traumatic even for healthy dogs." Noah hadn't moved from Luna's side. His small fingers continued their gentle stroking, offering comfort that somehow seemed to reach the dog despite her distress. Luna's eyes would occasionally flutter open to look at the boy, as if drawing strength from his presence. "I need to set up a proper birthing area," Dr. Martinez said, glancing around the small bathroom. "This tub isn't ideal." Hannah nodded. "We can move her to the living room. I'll get some clean blankets." While Hannah gathered supplies, Dr. Martinez carefully examined Luna's legs again. "These wounds are deep," he muttered, more to himself than to Hannah. "And they're not fresh. Someone left her like this for days, maybe longer." The thought made Hannah's stomach turn. What kind of person could do something so cruel? Together, they lifted Luna from the tub, using the now clean flannel shirt as a sling once more. The dog whimpered as they moved her, another contraction seizing her weakened body. "Easy, girl," Dr. Martinez murmured. "Almost there." They laid Luna on a nest of blankets Hannah had arranged in the center of the living room floor. The storm continued to rage outside, rain lashing against the windows, but inside, a different kind of storm was brewing as Luna's labor intensified. "The first puppy is coming," Dr. Martinez announced, positioning himself to assist if necessary. "Most dogs can deliver without help, but given her condition, I'll step in if there's any trouble." Noah sat cross-legged beside Luna's head, his hand never leaving her. Hannah marveled at her son's calm in the face of something that would frighten most children his age. Luna pushed, her entire body tensing with the effort. Minutes ticked by, the only sounds in the room being the rain outside and Luna's labored breathing. "Something's wrong," Dr. Martinez said finally, his brow furrowing. "She's too exhausted. She doesn't have the strength to push properly." Hannah's heart sank. "What can we do?" "I'll have to help," the vet said, already pulling on gloves from his bag. This first puppy needs to come out now, or we could lose them both. What followed was tense and frightening. Dr. Martinez worked with focused intensity, sometimes murmuring encouragement to Luna, sometimes giving terse instructions to Hannah. Noah watched it all, his eyes wide but unafraid, as if he understood perfectly what was happening. Finally, after what seemed like hours but was probably only minutes, Dr. Martinez carefully eased a tiny, wet bundle from Luna's body. "It's a girl," he announced, quickly wiping the membrane from the puppy's face and massaging its minuscule chest to stimulate breathing. For a terrifying moment, the puppy didn't move. Then, suddenly, it gave a tiny gasp, followed by a squeak that might have been its first attempt at a bark. Noah's face broke into a smile so radiant that Hannah felt tears spring to her eyes. This was the first time her son had truly smiled since the accident. It was as if some frozen part of him was beginning to thaw. Dr. Martinez handed the tiny puppy to Hannah. "Keep her warm while we deliver the rest," he instructed. Hannah cradled the newborn, marveling at how something so small could represent such an enormous triumph of life over cruelty. The puppy, still wet and wrinkled, nuzzled blindly against her hand, seeking warmth and nourishment. Luna delivered 5 more puppies over the next 2 hours. Each birth was a struggle, with Dr. Martinez having to assist more than he would with a healthy dog. But somehow, despite her weakened state, Luna fought to bring her babies into the world. The 5th puppy, however, wasn't breathing when it emerged. "No," Hannah whispered, watching as Dr. Martinez worked frantically to revive the tiny creature. He rubbed its chest, cleared its airways, even gave the smallest puffs of breath to its miniature muzzle. Nothing. "I'm sorry," he began to say, his voice heavy with defeat. But Noah wouldn't accept it. Before anyone could stop him, he reached out and took the lifeless puppy from the vet's hands. Hannah started to object, not wanting her son to face such a stark lesson in mortality, but something in Noah's expression stopped her. The boy cradled the puppy close to his chest, bending his head until his lips were near its ear. And then, the miracle happened. Noah spoke. His voice was rusty from disuse, barely audible over the storm outside, but it was unmistakably there. "Live," he whispered to the puppy. "Please live." Hannah froze, her heart hammering in her chest. Dr. Martinez looked up sharply, his hands stilling in their work. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, the tiny puppy in Noah's hands twitched once, twice. Its little chest expanded in a desperate gasp for air, and then, incredibly, it began to squirm and squeak. "My God," Dr. Martinez breathed, staring at Noah with astonishment. "I don't know how, but you saved it." Noah looked up, his eyes meeting his mother's. Hannah couldn't breathe, couldn't speak. Her son had broken his silence to save a life. The final puppy arrived minutes later, smaller than the others but surprisingly vigorous. When all 6 had been cleaned and checked by Dr. Martinez, they were placed beside Luna, who, despite her exhaustion, immediately began to lick and nuzzle her offspring. 6 healthy puppies, Dr. Martinez said, shaking his head in wonder. "It's more than I hoped for, given her condition." Hannah couldn't take her eyes off Noah, who was watching the puppies with a soft expression that broke her heart and healed it all at once. "She needs to rest now," the vet continued, packing his equipment. "And she'll need medication for at least 2 weeks. Those wounds are serious, and there's still a risk of infection spreading." Hannah nodded, still dazed by everything that had happened. "Thank you. For coming out in the storm. For saving them." Dr. Martinez smiled, the weariness in his face softening. "Thank your son," he said quietly. "I've been a vet for 30 years, and I've never seen anything like what just happened." He wrote out detailed instructions for Luna's care, promised to return the following day to check on her, and then prepared to leave. The storm had lessened somewhat, though rain still fell steadily outside. At the door, Dr. Martinez paused. "Ms. Marshall," he said, his voice serious again. "What was done to that dog? It was criminal. Someone deliberately tried to kill her and her puppies. We should report this to the police." Hannah glanced back toward the living room, where Noah sat beside Luna and her puppies, his small face peaceful for the first time in months. "Tomorrow," she said. "Tonight, I just want to be grateful they're alive." The vet nodded in understanding. "Tomorrow, then. Get some rest, both of you." After he left, Hannah returned to the living room and sat down beside Noah. Luna was sleeping now, her puppies nestled against her belly, tiny mouths already finding their way to milk. "Noah," Hannah said softly, hardly daring to break the spell. "You spoke?" Her son looked up at her, something new in his eyes, something like hope. He opened his mouth, hesitated, then whispered, "To save her." Hannah couldn't hold back her tears any longer. She gathered Noah into her arms, holding him close, as silent sobs shook her body. Her son, her beautiful silent son, had found his voice again. That night, neither of them slept much. They took turns watching over Luna and her puppies, making sure the new mother had water, and that the heating pad Dr. Martinez had set up stayed at the right temperature. Noah seemed unwilling to leave Luna's side for more than a few minutes at a time, as if afraid she might disappear if he looked away. Dawn broke clear and cold, the storm having moved on during the night. Hannah made breakfast, simple toast and eggs, which they ate sitting on the floor beside Luna. "You know we can't keep them all," Hannah said gently, watching as Noah carefully stroked one of the puppies with a single finger. "Once they're old enough to leave their mother, we'll need to find homes for the puppies." Noah looked up at her, his expression solemn. He didn't speak again. Those two precious words seemed to have exhausted his courage for now, but his eyes asked the question clearly enough. "Yes," Hannah said, smiling through fresh tears. "Luna can stay with us, if she wants to." As if understanding, Luna lifted her head and licked Noah's hand, her tail thumping weakly against the blankets. Later that morning, Hannah called the local police station. Officer Reyes, a woman Hannah knew casually from the diner where she worked, arrived within the hour. "I've never seen anything like this," Officer Reyes said, kneeling to examine Luna's injuries, which Dr. Martinez had cleaned and bandaged the night before. "Who would do such a thing?" Hannah shook her head. "I have no idea. We found her in the woods, chained to a stake, half buried in mud. Someone wanted her to die out there, her and her puppies." Officer Reyes's expression hardened. "I'll file a report for animal cruelty. Can you show me exactly where you found her? There might be evidence we can collect." Hannah glanced at Noah, who was back at his usual post beside Luna. "I don't want to leave them." "I understand," Officer Reyes said. "Maybe tomorrow, when your son's father or another relative can stay with them?" Hannah's chest tightened. "It's just the two of us," she said quietly. "But my neighbor, Mrs. Peterson, might be willing to sit with them for an hour or so." Officer Reyes nodded. "That would work. The sooner we can investigate the scene, the better our chances of finding whoever did this." After the officer left, promising to return the next day, Hannah went to check on Luna again. The German Shepherd was awake, watching her puppies with tired but alert eyes. When Hannah approached, Luna's tail gave its now familiar gentle thump of greeting. "You're part of our family now," Hannah told her, stroking the dog's head. "We'll keep you safe." Noah, who had been rearranging the blankets around the puppies, looked up at his mother's words. For a moment, something like fear flickered across his face. "What is it, sweetie?" Hannah asked. Noah pointed to Luna, then to the door, then made a motion like someone taking something away. Hannah understood immediately. "No one is going to take her from us," she assured him. "She's ours now." But even as she said the words, Hannah wondered if it was a promise she could keep. Luna might belong to someone who might come looking for their dog and her valuable purebred puppies. The thought troubled her throughout the day, but she pushed it aside, focusing instead on the practical matters at hand. Luna needed regular medication, fresh bandages, and special food to help her recover her strength and produce milk for the puppies. Dr. Martinez returned that afternoon, as promised. He examined Luna and pronounced himself cautiously optimistic. "She's responding well to the antibiotics," he said, replacing the bandages on her legs. "And she's an excellent mother, despite everything she's been through." Noah beamed at this praise of his rescued friend. He had been following the vet around all afternoon, watching his every move with fascination. "Your son has a natural way with animals," Dr. Martinez observed as they watched Noah carefully offering Luna water from a bowl. "Has he ever thought about becoming a veterinarian?" Hannah smiled sadly. "He's only 5, she said. And until yesterday, he hadn't spoken a word in 8 months." The vet looked startled. "May I ask why?" Hannah hesitated, then decided there was no harm in telling him. "There was an accident," she said quietly, making sure Noah couldn't overhear. "My husband, Noah's father, was killed." Noah was in the car. He saw everything. The memories threatened to overwhelm her, and she took a deep breath before continuing. He stopped speaking after that. The doctors call it selective mutism, brought on by trauma. Dr. Martinez's eyes softened with understanding. And yesterday, he spoke to save the puppy. Hannah nodded, wiping away a tear. 2 words, the first I've heard from him since the funeral. The vet glanced at Noah, who was now lying on his stomach beside Luna, eye to eye with the dog. There's a special bond there, he said. I've seen animals help people heal in ways that medicine can't explain. Maybe Luna needed Noah as much as he needed her. The thought comforted Hannah as she prepared dinner that evening. She made simple sandwiches, which they again ate in the living room, unwilling to leave Luna and her puppies even for the time it would take to eat at the kitchen table. After Noah had fallen asleep, curled up on the floor beside Luna, his small hand resting on her side, Hannah sat in the dim light, watching them both. For the first time in months, she felt something like peace. The ringing of the phone shattered the quiet. Hannah jumped up quickly to answer it before it could wake Noah. "Hello?" she said softly, stepping into the kitchen. "Hannah Marshall?" a man's voice asked. It was unfamiliar, deep and authoritative. "Yes, that's me. My name is Sergeant James Keller with the K9 unit of the state police. I understand you found a German Shepherd yesterday." Hannah's blood ran cold. How had he heard about Luna so quickly? Officer Reyes had only taken her report that morning. "Yes," she said cautiously. "She was abandoned in the woods, badly injured." There was a pause. "Ms. Marshall, I need to inform you that the dog you found is police property. Her name is Raya, and she's a trained police K9. Hannah's heart began to race. "That's impossible," she said. "Her tag says Luna, and she was deliberately tied up and buried, left to die. No police department would do that to one of their dogs." Another pause, longer this time. When Sergeant Keller spoke again, his voice had an edge to it. "Ms. Marshall, I'm not at liberty to discuss the details over the phone. I'll be coming to your residence tomorrow morning to retrieve the dog and her puppies." "No," Hannah said, surprised at her own defiance flooding through her. "No, I don't think so. This dog was abandoned and tortured. My son found her and saved her life. She's ours now." "Ms. Marshall," the sergeant's voice hardened, "that dog is state property. Keeping her would be theft of police equipment, which is a felony offense. I strongly advise you to cooperate." Fear and anger warred within Hannah. "I want to see some paperwork," she demanded. "Proof that this dog belongs to your department, and I want an explanation for why she was chained and buried in the mud if she's so valuable to you." "I'll bring all the necessary documentation tomorrow," Sergeant Keller said, his tone clipped. "Be ready to hand over the dog and puppies by 9 a.m. Before Hannah could respond, the line went dead. She stood in the darkened kitchen, the phone still clutched in her hand, trying to process what had just happened. Luna, or Raya, if the sergeant was to be believed, was a police dog. It made no sense. Why would a valuable K9 be abandoned to die? And how had this Sergeant Keller learned about her so quickly? Hannah returned to the living room, her mind racing. Noah was still asleep, his face peaceful in the soft glow of the nightlight. Luna watched Hannah with those intelligent amber eyes, as if sensing her distress. "I won't let them take you," Hannah whispered, kneeling beside the dog. "Not until I know exactly what's going on here." She reached for her phone and called Dr. Martinez. Despite the late hour, he answered on the 3rd ring. "It's Hannah Marshall," she said without preamble. "Something strange is happening. A man claiming to be from the state police K9 unit just called. He says Luna belongs to them and he's coming to take her tomorrow." "That doesn't sound right," Dr. Martinez said, instantly alert. "Why would a police dog be abandoned like that? Did he explain?" "Number?" "He refused to discuss it over the phone, said he'd bring documentation tomorrow." There was a pause as the vet considered. "I don't like this," he said finally. "At the very least, Luna, or Raya, if that's her name, isn't fit to be moved yet. She needs at least another week of rest and medication before she should travel, and the puppies are too young to be separated from her." "Will you tell him that?" Hannah asked. "He might listen to a medical professional." "I'll do better than that, doctor," Martinez said firmly. "I'll be there when he arrives. No one's taken that dog anywhere until we get some answers." Relief washed over Hannah. "Thank you," she said, her voice breaking. "I don't know what's going on, but something feels very wrong about this." After hanging up, Hannah made a decision. She couldn't wait until morning to learn more. Moving quietly so as not to wake Noah, she retrieved her laptop and sat on the couch where she could still see Luna and the puppies. First, she searched for Sergeant James Keller, State Police K-9 Unit. Nothing came up. No mentions in newspaper articles, no listings on the official state police website, nothing. That in itself wasn't necessarily suspicious. Not all police officers had an online presence, but it did nothing to ease her concerns. Next, she tried police dog abandoned. The results were heartbreaking. Stories of retired K-9s left at shelters, cases of abuse and neglect, but nothing that matched Luna's situation. Growing more frustrated, Hannah tried a different approach. She searched for German Shepherd military tag Luna. To her surprise, several results appeared, linking to articles about military working dogs. She clicked on the first one, a piece about the naming conventions for service dogs. As she read, a chill ran down her spine. According to the article, Luna wasn't just a pretty name meaning moon. It was also an acronym used by certain specialized military units. Loyalty under necessary aggression. Military, not police. Hannah's fingers flew over the keyboard as she searched for more information. Military working dogs were sometimes transferred to police departments after their service, but they were valuable, highly trained assets. No legitimate organization would simply abandon one, unless there was something about this particular dog that someone wanted to hide. Hannah was so absorbed in her research that she didn't notice Noah stirring until he was standing beside her, rubbing his eyes sleepily. "Hey, sweetie," she said, closing the laptop quickly. "You should be asleep." Noah pointed to Luna, then made a questioning gesture. "She's fine," Hannah assured him. "Just sleeping?" Noah seemed satisfied with this and climbed onto the couch beside his mother, nestling against her side. Within minutes, he was asleep again, his small body warm against hers. Hannah held him close, her mind still racing. Someone was coming for Luna tomorrow, someone who might not be who they claimed to be. She needed to be prepared. Carefully, so as not to wake Noah again, she reached for her phone and sent a text to Officer Reyes, explaining the situation and asking her to come to the house before 9 a.m. Then she texted Mrs. Peterson next door, asking if she could take Noah for a few hours in the morning, if necessary. Finally, Hannah allowed herself to close her eyes, though sleep seemed impossible. Whatever happened tomorrow, one thing was certain. She wouldn't let anyone take Luna without a fight, not after everything they'd been through to save her. As she drifted into an uneasy doze, Hannah could have sworn she heard Luna's soft whimper. Not of pain this time, but almost like a warning. Do you think Sergeant Keller is telling the truth about Luna being a police dog? Or is there something more sinister going on? Share your theories in the comments. Hannah woke with a start, momentarily disoriented to find herself on the couch rather than in her bed. Dawn light filtered through the curtains, casting long shadows across the living room. Noah was still curled against her side, his breathing deep and even. She glanced at her watch, 6:15 a.m., less than 3 hours until Sergeant Keller's promised arrival. Carefully, she extricated herself from Noah's grasp and padded across the room to check on Luna. The German Shepherd was already awake, amber eyes tracking Hannah's movements. Her 6 puppies nursed contentedly, tiny paws kneading against her belly. "Morning, girl," Hannah whispered, kneeling beside her. Luna's tail thumped weakly against the blankets, a small gesture that somehow conveyed enormous trust. Hannah checked the bandages on Luna's legs. The wounds still looked angry and painful, but there was no fresh bleeding. The antibiotics seemed to be working. "No one's taking you away from us," Hannah promised, gently stroking Luna's head. "Not until we get some real answers." As if in response, Luna licked Hannah's hand, her gaze unwavering. Hannah's phone buzzed with a text message. It was from Officer Reyes. "On duty at 8. Will come by before your visitor arrives." Relief washed over Hannah. Having a legitimate police officer present would help, especially if this Sergeant Keller turned out to be less than forthcoming. Another text arrived moments later, this one from Mrs. Peterson, confirming she could take Noah if necessary. Everything was falling into place, but Hannah still felt a gnawing anxiety in the pit of her stomach. She moved to the kitchen to make coffee, her mind racing through possible scenarios. What if Keller was legitimate and had legal documentation giving him rights to Luna? What if he brought backup? What if... The sound of small footsteps interrupted her spiraling thoughts. Noah appeared in the doorway, his hair tousled from sleep, his eyes still heavy-lidded. "Good morning, sweetie," Hannah said, forcing a smile. "Did you sleep okay?" Noah nodded, then pointed toward the living room with a questioning look. "Luna's fine," Hannah assured him. "The puppies, too. They're all doing great." Relief flooded Noah's face. He moved to the refrigerator and pulled it open, pointing inside. "Hungry, huh?" Hannah said. "Let's make some breakfast. We've got a big day ahead." As they ate their cereal, Hannah weighed whether to tell Noah about the impending visit from Sergeant Keller. Her instinct was to protect him from worry, but after everything they'd been through, she felt he deserved the truth, or at least a version of it. "Noah," she began carefully, "someone is coming to talk to us about Luna today." Noah's spoon froze halfway to his mouth, his eyes suddenly wide and alert. "This person says that Luna might have been a working dog, like the ones that help police officers. He wants to talk to us about her." Noah's expression darkened. He shook his head vehemently, then pointed to Luna in the living room and back to himself. "I know," Hannah said softly. "She's yours, ours, and I'm not going to let anyone take her without making absolutely sure it's the right thing to do. That's why Dr. Martinez is coming back this morning, and Officer Reyes, too." Noah seemed only slightly reassured. He abandoned his cereal and went to sit beside Luna, his small body a protective barrier between her and the door. Hannah watched him, her heart aching. In just 2 days, Luna had become integral to their lives, a catalyst for Noah's emerging from his silence. The thought of losing her now was unbearable. At precisely 8:15, Officer Reyes arrived, her police cruiser parked conspicuously in front of the house. "Thank you for coming," Hannah said, ushering her inside. "Of course," Reyes replied, her expression serious. "I did some checking after your text. There is a Sergeant James Keller with the state police, but he's not registered with the K-9 unit. He works in a different division entirely." Hannah's suspicions deepened. "So he lied about that?" "Not necessarily," Reyes cautioned. "He could be on a special assignment, or there could be some simple explanation. But it's enough to warrant caution." They moved to the living room, where Noah sat vigilantly beside Luna. Officer Reyes knelt to examine the dog and her puppies. "She's looking better than yesterday," she observed. "Still, she's clearly in no condition to be moved." "That's what Dr. Martinez said," Hannah agreed. "He should be here any minute." As if on cue, there was a knock at the door. Hannah opened it to find not Dr. Martinez, but a tall, broad-shouldered man in a crisp blue uniform. His face was expressionless, his posture rigid with authority. "Ms. Marshall?" he asked, though it wasn't really a question. "Sergeant James Keller, State Police." He flashed a badge too quickly for Hannah to properly examine it. Hannah felt her pulse quicken. "You're early," she said, not moving from the doorway. "I prefer punctuality," he replied coolly. "May I come in? I've brought the documentation we discussed." Hannah hesitated, then stepped aside. "Officer Reyes from Pineville PD is here as well," she said, watching his reaction carefully. If Keller was surprised or concerned by this information, he didn't show it. He simply nodded and followed Hannah to the living room. Officer Reyes stood as they entered, her hand instinctively moving to rest on her service belt. "Sergeant Keller," she greeted him with professional courtesy. "I wasn't aware the state police had an interest in this case." Keller's eyes narrowed slightly. "This isn't a case, officer. It's a simple matter of retrieving state property." He glanced at Luna, and something flickered across his face. Recognition, certainly, but also something else. Something like wariness. "You said you have documentation?" Hannah prompted, stepping between Keller and Luna. "Yes," he replied, withdrawing a folder from his jacket. "Everything's in order. The dog, designation K9-R47, named Raya, was part of a specialized training program. Unfortunately, she proved unsuitable and was scheduled for rehoming. There was a miscommunication that led to her temporary misplacement." "Misplacement?" Hannah repeated incredulously. "She was chained to a stake and buried in mud. She nearly died. Her puppies nearly died." Keller's expression remained impassive. "An unfortunate situation that is under internal investigation. I'm not at liberty to discuss the details." Another knock at the door announced Dr. Martinez's arrival. Hannah excused herself to let him in, quickly explaining the situation in hushed tones. When they returned to the living room, tension hung in the air like a physical presence. Noah had positioned himself more firmly beside Luna, one hand protectively on her head. The German Shepherd was fully alert now, her ears forward, her gaze fixed unwaveringly on Sergeant Keller. "Dr. Martinez," Keller acknowledged the vet with a curt nod. "I understand this dog is under your care. Is she fit for transport?" Dr. Martinez shook his head decisively. "Absolutely not. She has severe lacerations on her hind legs with active infection. She's malnourished, dehydrated, and nursing 6 newborn puppies. Moving her now would pose a significant risk to her health and the health of the puppies." Keller frowned. "I've brought appropriate transport and can ensure she receives continued veterinary care." "With all due respect, Sergeant," Dr. Martinez said firmly, "as the attending veterinarian, I cannot ethically approve her removal at this time. She needs at least a week of rest and continued treatment before she can be safely relocated." Hannah watched the exchange with growing hope. Maybe they could at least buy some time. Officer Reyes stepped forward. "Sergeant Keller, may I see the documentation you brought?" Keller handed over the folder with obvious reluctance. Reyes examined the papers carefully, her brow furrowing as she read. "These forms don't specify which unit this dog was assigned to," she noted, "and there's no record of the miscommunication you mentioned." "Those details are classified," Keller replied stiffly. "Convenient," Hannah muttered. Keller shot her a cold look. "Ms. Marshall, I understand your attachment to the animal, but this is a matter of state security. The dog must be returned to our custody." Noah, who had been silent throughout the exchange, suddenly stood up. His small face was set in an expression of such fierce determination that all the adults fell quiet, watching him. He pointed to Luna, then to the wounds on her legs, then to Keller. His meaning couldn't have been clearer. "You did this to her." Keller's composure slipped for the first time. "That's not," he began, then stopped, visibly regaining control. "The boy doesn't understand the situation." "I think he understands perfectly," Hannah said, moving to stand beside her son. "Luna was abused, intentionally hurt, and left to die. And for some reason, you're desperate to get her back before we can figure out why." The sergeant's eyes hardened. "Ms. Marshall, I'm trying to be patient, but my orders are clear. That dog is coming with me today, one way or another." "Are you threatening us?" Officer Reyes asked sharply. Before Keller could respond, the tension was broken by a new sound, a deep, rumbling growl. Luna, despite her weakened state, had raised her head, her lips pulled back to reveal sharp teeth. The growl wasn't directed at Hannah or Noah, or even Officer Reyes. It was aimed directly at Sergeant Keller. Everyone froze. Luna's reaction was unmistakable. She knew this man, and she feared him. "She recognizes you," Hannah said slowly, realization dawning, "and she's terrified of you." Keller's hand moved subtly toward his hip, toward his weapon. "I wouldn't," Officer Reyes warned, her own hand now resting openly on her service pistol. "Sergeant, I think we need to take a step back and sort this out properly. If this dog was truly state property, there are protocols to follow. Dr. Martinez has made it clear that moving her now would endanger her health. I suggest we reconvene when she's medically cleared for transport." Keller stood rigid, clearly weighing his options. After a long, tense moment, he gave a tight nod. "Fine. 1 week. But I'll be filing reports with your superiors, Officer Reyes. And Ms. Marshall, do not attempt to relocate the dog. That would be considered theft of government property." With that, he turned and strode from the house, his back stiff with barely contained anger. As soon as the door closed behind him, Hannah sagged with relief. Luna's growl subsided, though she remained vigilant, her eyes fixed on the door, as if expecting Keller to return at any moment. "That man is hiding something," Dr. Martinez said, voicing what they were all thinking. Officer Reyes nodded grimly. "Those papers looked official, but something's not right. I'm going to make some calls, see what I can find out about this specialized training program he mentioned." "Thank you," Hannah said fervently. I can't believe someone would do this to her." She gestured to Luna's injured legs. "Chain her up, bury her, leave her to die with her puppies. It's inhuman." "Unfortunately, I've seen cruelty to animals before," Dr. Martinez said sadly. "But this feels different, more calculated." Noah had returned to Luna's side, his small hand stroking her head soothingly. The German Shepherd had calmed considerably, though she still watched the door. 1 week, Hannah mused. That's not much time. I'll do what I can to find answers, Officer Reyes promised. And in the meantime, document everything. Luna's condition, her recovery, all of it. If this does end up in some kind of legal battle, you'll want records. After Officer Reyes and Dr. Martinez left, with promises to return the following day, Hannah sat beside Noah and Luna, her mind racing. We're going to figure this out, she told them both. Whatever Keller is hiding, we'll find it. Noah nodded solemnly, then did something that took Hannah's breath away. He leaned down to Luna's ear and whispered, clearly enough for Hannah to hear, "We'll protect you." 3 words, 3 precious words that brought tears to Hannah's eyes. Her son was speaking again, and it was Luna who had brought him back. The rest of the day passed in a blur of caring for Luna and her puppies, fielding calls from Officer Reyes with updates on her investigation, and trying to maintain some semblance of normality for Noah's sake. By evening, Hannah was exhausted but determined. She waited until Noah had fallen asleep beside Luna, then returned to her laptop. Her search the previous night had yielded tantalizing clues about military working dogs, but nothing specific that could explain Luna's situation. Tonight, she decided to try a different approach. Instead of searching for information about the dog, she searched for Sergeant James Keller. It took hours of digging through public records, news archives, and social media, but eventually, Hannah found something. A 3-year-old newspaper article about a military contractor called Cerberus Security Solutions. The article was primarily about the company's lucrative government contracts, but there, in a photo of the company's leadership team, stood a younger James Keller, identified as the Director of Special Projects. He's not just police, Hannah murmured to herself. He's private sector, or was. Further searches revealed that Cerberus specialized in enhanced canine training for military and law enforcement applications. Their website was sparse on details, but full of impressive-sounding jargon about next-generation capabilities and specialized sensory development. Hannah scrolled through page after page, searching for anything that might explain Luna's condition or Keller's interest in her. Finally, buried in a press release from 2 years ago, she found a cryptic reference to Project Moonlight, a collaboration between Cerberus and an unnamed government agency to develop canines with extraordinary sensory capabilities for classified applications. Moonlight. Luna meant moon. It couldn't be a coincidence. Hannah's phone rang, startling her. It was Officer Reyes. "Sorry for calling so late," the officer said without preamble, "but I found something you should know. The K9 unit has no record of a dog designated K9R47 or named Raya. In fact, they've never used that designation system. And Sergeant Keller, he's on administrative leave, has been for 6 months." Hannah's pulse quickened. "So he lied about everything." "Looks that way," Reyes confirmed. "I've reported this up my chain of command, but to be honest, I'm not sure how much help we'll get. Keller still has friends in the department, and without knowing what's really going on." "I might know," Hannah said, and quickly explained what she'd discovered about Cerberus Security and Project Moonlight. There was a long pause on the other end of the line. "Hannah," Officer Reyes finally said, her voice grave, "be careful. If you're right, if this is about some classified military project, these people play by different rules. They won't just give up." "I know," Hannah said, a chill running down her spine. "But neither will I." After hanging up, Hannah returned to the living room. Noah and Luna were both asleep, the puppies nestled between them in a tangle of warmth and safety. The sight strengthened Hannah's resolve. Whatever Luna had been part of, whatever had been done to her, it was over now. She was part of their family, and Hannah would fight to keep her safe. The next morning, Dr. Martinez arrived early to check on Luna. He was pleased with her progress. The infection in her legs was responding to the antibiotics, and she was producing plenty of milk for her puppies. "She's a fighter," he said admiringly as he replaced her bandages. "Most dogs in her condition wouldn't have survived, let alone been able to care for a litter." Noah watched the examination with intense focus, handing the vet supplies before he even asked for them. Dr. Martinez smiled at the boy. "You've got a natural talent